overview, right? So that you actually are knowledgeable about the area in which your degree project is going to be in, right? At that time, you know, it is helpful to have regular meetings with your examiner, with the supervisor anyway. And the reason is, you know, somehow it should not happen that, you know, that it is detected rather late in the process that there is some problem, right? So we want to detect the problems early on, right? So that we can somehow deflect them or reconfigure somehow the scope of the thesis work or whatever, right? So it is really in your interest that you seek to stay in contact. After work 8 or so, you know, you should come up with a proposal and present it to the examiner. And this is really a good milestone to check that everything is going according to plan, right? So this is, you should not so much think of this as pressure or something that we want to enforce on you, but something that actually helps you, right? That helps you to keep on track. And then, you know, just before the end, week 18, you know, you come up with a draft report, hand it over to the examiner. The examiner will give it to the opponent, right? And this is already something which is not just a collection of random nonsense, but this is apart from some small fixes that might turn out in the discussion. This is already it, right? As far as content as well as presentation and languages. Okay, so then during this time you should also make sure that you find a degree project you can oppose. I'm going to say a little more about that later. And then eventually everything ends nicely with you know, your oral presentation in week 20. And then, you know, there will be typically some issues brought up in the oral presentation, and there will be, say, one more week you can use to incorporate these issues back into your report. It's final, it's being printed, it will be registered, you get your degrees, you go out and make a final. Right? Okay. So I already said that, right? No big deal. And what is very important, you know, you remember there was this idea, you know, you start with a problem description, then, you know, you do a literature study, then you have up to week 8 a draft, and then you have somehow, you know, the final revision. So it is the model of how this report is done is not that you do all the work and in the end you frantically try to write it down within 1 week. No, but you evolve the document over the whole 20 weeks, right? Doing anything else but continuously refining and evolving this document does not work, right? Because you will have forgotten everything that was interesting to be said in the report by the time you're writing, right? So it's really something that evolves over time. And as I said, you know, the draft proposal is essential, you know, to check that you're going into the right direction. And opposition, I already said, and the opponent must just write a small report, right? So, and remember, this is an important aspect where, you know, your examiner can see that, you know, when you act as the opponent, that, okay, so the learning outcomes are met. This student is in fact capable of giving, you know, a critical judgment of other people. And you typically have to attend also the oral presentation, right? A tip, try to attend several oral presentations of thesis work before your own, right? Because you will see both things where a student has a really clever idea which works very well, and also things that you want to very definitely avoid, right? So it's really go there, you will be able to learn a lot. Right, the oral presentation is public, it must be public, and you know, what you have to make sure that the student contacts the examiner sufficiently early to reserve a date, a room, and all of that. And then the examiner will publicly announce when the defense is going to take. And it says, you know, the opponent must show up. Yes, shoot. Well, then it's quite easy. Then you should move it to a time slot where the opponent can attack. Right, and you know, I mean, there's always a certain degree of flexibility, right? I mean, then either the opponent hops off and goes to a different thesis to oppose, and some other opponent comes in, and you know, there's always a degree of flexibility that you know, this is somehow the normal behavior. Okay. For a bachelor, as I told you, it's just everything divided by 2, right? So that's all what you have to know. Problem statement, draft, report, final report, opponent. It's all there, right? But just, you know, the miniature version of it. And, yes? How much is the writer? Well, I mean, so I mean, what is in there? So in the master, it looks a little bit better because it's after week 8, right? So okay, so what you already know, you have the problem statement, right? You have the literature study, and so basically what you should have in place is the methodology, right? How you want to do it, and you should have a first litmus test on whether the methodology works. And after that, you should really be able to look ahead, okay, so what should be the structure of the rest of the document, right? And somehow, what is the plan I want to do? So how much technical work should I be there? What kind of evaluation do I want to have? What kind of analysis do I want to have? So it is very much that you don't have all the results in place, but that you have a very detailed plan of how you're going to conduct the rest of your thesis work. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Or comments from my colleagues?
I would say it's important to think always that you're really writing the whole thesis. And as has been indicated, you're really just evaluating continuously how do I improve the different parts of it. And so if you really look at what's the difference between what I call the Alvin version, it's really this draft. It looks like Swiss cheese, but the whole thesis is there. You can see all the pieces. But it's really important that you know what are the criteria you're going to use to decide, have I accomplished what I'm setting out to do? Because that will decide how many experiments do I need to make, what data do I need to collect, how long does it take me to do that collection? And that's the point where you can plan out the rest of it, but it's also the point where you can change. And you can say, no, it isn't going to be feasible to do this. I need to rescale and I need to change what I'm targeting.
And then this is really, really important because, you know, I just recently had a case where somehow by a very unlucky, chain of factors, I talked to 2 students, master students, who had been working on their ex-job for 16 months, right? And they were not exactly from rich backgrounds, so they had invested. I mean, you know that Sweden is not one of the cheapest countries to many of your own home countries. You know that, so you know that, you know, putting money up for 16 months for 2 people is a lot of money, right? And then, I mean, only then, you know, they somehow they really took it serious to seek out, oh, is this really going to work? And the answer was no, right? That is 16 months in vain at a huge expense, right? I mean, it's not an extra burden on you. It is a way to guide you successfully through this process. It is in your interest right? I mean, not in our interest, right? So we would love students who will press on a button and 20 weeks later, out comes the degree report. That would be cool, right? But that's not how it is. I come to that, okay? I come to that. Right, and right after this, I better hurry. There, for the bachelor, in particular for the bachelor level thesis of the civil engineer students, there will be more information by Anna Schütten in Saal D. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. To confuse you, it is not Saal D, it is Aula. So you guys stay here. Only bachelor level. Not my fault, not my fault. Right, okay, we know that, right? So this is just a summary, and this is basically, after you have read, I can only repeat that, after you have read the description, you go over this checklist and check whether you understand each and every aspect of it, and if not, you read again. Miscellaneous. Okay, I mentioned that before. You have to do this degree project with